Today we are going to talk about life functions, and we're also going to talk about regional terms. So to be alive, there need to be some functions that are common across all living things. One of those things is that they can maintain boundaries. So what that means is that an organism can keep what's outside of their body outside and what's inside of their body inside. Another major useful thing for being alive is the ability to move, even if it's not moving from place to place. Even plants can move, right? Because they can redirect themselves so they get more sunlight and things like that. They might also not physically move their bodies, but they can move substances throughout the organism. So movement is important. Responsiveness is another important life function. That's the ability to sense changes and then to react to those changes. So they're able to detect a stimulus from the environment or from inside of their body, and then they can react. Digestion is essentially the breakdown and absorption of nutrients, and so that is how things that are heterotrophs, like humans, can obtain energy and then use it in their bodies. Metabolism are all of the chemical reactions that happen in your body. So it's the breakdown of molecules and then the building up of large molecules from smaller ones. Metabolism also produces energy by converting chemical energy to heat or to kinetic energy, and metabolism is typically regulated by hormones. And then excretion is the ability for things to be eliminated from the body. So your digestive system eliminates solid waste. You also eliminate chemical waste through urine. A species needs to be capable of reproduction, and that allows the species to perpetuate more of its own kind. This occurs at the population level, and it produces a new generation. And then humans are also capable of growth, meaning that when we are born, we are made of fewer cells than we are when we become adults, and so we can increase our cell size and we can increase the number of cells in our bodies. In order to stay alive, our bodies need nutrients. Those are the chemicals that we use for energy and for building new cells. The major nutrients that are found in biological systems, including humans, are carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, vitamins, and minerals. We also have molecules called nucleic acids in our cells, and that is how we transmit genetic information. We also need oxygen. We have a metabolic process called cellular respiration that requires oxygen as an electron acceptor, and so we need oxygen in order to have the amount of energy we need to drive cellular action. Another major need for staying alive is water. Humans are 60 to 80% water by weight, and so it's a really important element that we have, or a really important molecule in our bodies. It's the most abundant chemical in the human body, and it provides the solution, essentially the aqueous solution for metabolic reactions. It also helps us to maintain a stable body temperature, and that's because water does a really good job of holding on to energy, and so it's difficult to heat water up, but it's also difficult to cool it down, so it helps us to maintain a consistent body temperature. And then we also have a specific atmospheric pressure where we are most comfortable, and that's because we need the right atmospheric pressure for gas exchange. You'll notice if you go to the mountains, the air is a little bit thinner, and if you're not used to living in a place that has high elevation, the first couple weeks that you're there are rough because the air is a lot less dense, and so you have a harder time extracting enough oxygen. In order to carry out all of these different life functions, our body has several different systems, right? So to deal with nutrient intake, we have our digestive system where food enters our body. We can also eliminate waste through our digestive system. The digestive system can absorb nutrients that are then carried around by the cardiovascular system. Those nutrients can be used by our cells. Our cells produce waste that can be eliminated via our kidneys, and then that's eliminated as urine. We also are able to take in oxygen gas and release carbon dioxide gas through our respiratory system. So all of these different systems help us to gather the things we need to carry out life functions and eliminate the things we don't need for life function. One of the most important things that your body does all the time is maintain homeostasis. Homeostasis is the maintenance of a stable internal environment. And so we refer to that as a dynamic state of equilibrium because as things inside or outside of your body are changed, your body can respond to return to equilibrium. It's necessary for normal body functions, it's for sustaining life, and anytime a disturbance occurs in homeostasis, that can be referred to as a homeostatic imbalance. That can be caused by a disease, for example. But homeostasis is super important for keeping constant body temperature, keeping a constant pH in your bloodstream, amongst many other things. So next we'll go over kind of how homeostasis works. If your body is in homeostasis, it's like having a balance board that is balanced, so it's level. If it becomes imbalanced by stimulus, then things can change. A receptor is able to detect the change, so that's like your nervous system, for example, can do that. That receptor can send a message to your control center, which is also the central nervous system. We call that the CNS. It sends those messages via something called the afferent pathway, which is part of your peripheral nervous system. And the control center is where information can be processed. If it's processed and your body needs to respond in a certain way, then it is sent via an afferent pathway, which is also part of your peripheral nervous system. And that peripheral nervous system is going to talk to an effector. This could be a muscle or a gland. And it causes the body to have some sort of change. That change has the result of bringing the body back into homeostasis or into a homeostatic balance. So now we can review some of that vocabulary. A receptor detects a change in the environment. A change in the environment is also referred to as stimuli. It sends information to the control center. Remember that control center is the central nervous system. The role of the central nervous system or the control center is to determine the set point. So for example, body temperature in humans is around 98 degrees Fahrenheit. It can analyze information that it receives from your receptors, and then it can determine the appropriate response. The response is then communicated through an effector, which provides a means of response to the stimulus. So that is going to send a message to another part of your body to respond. Most of the homeostatic feedback loops in your body are called negative feedback loops. That means it responds like a thermostat in your house. So if, for example, your body gets too warm, that's going to tell your brain that you're too warm, and that is going to cause your body to do things like sweat to reduce your body temperature until your body temperature goes back to normal. Once it's normal, it ceases the activity of sweating. So that's a negative feedback loop because it prevents the stimulus from causing an uncontrolled change. Positive feedback loops increase the original stimulus to push the variable further. This only occurs in two places in the human body. One of those is blood clotting, because once a clot starts, you don't want it to stop until the tear in the blood vessel is completely closed. And then also during the birth of a baby, because you wouldn't want labor to begin and then have a negative feedback loop, which would stop labor. You need the labor to continue to become more intense all the way until the baby's born, because otherwise you'd just be stuck with the baby forever, but not one that's born. All right, now we're going to move on to the language of anatomy, specifically regional terms today. And so we're going to talk about the names of the different parts of the body or different regions of the body. So regional terms refer to areas of the body, not specific structures. And so first we're going to go over anterior landmarks. The anterior side of the body is also called the front side of the body or the ventral side of the body. Okay, so we're going to start with the head. The head is known as the cephalic region. So your whole head is considered cephalic. And then your forehead is the frontal region. Your orbital region is around your eyes. Your nasal region is your nose. Your buccal region or buccal region are your cheeks. And the oral region is your mouth. And then the mental region is around your chin. Moving down, we're going to find the cervical region. That's your neck. The word cervix means neck, so that's why it's called the cervical region. And then the thoracic region is your thorax. So that's the sternal region, which is the sternum, or where your sternum is located. And then the axillary region is your armpits. And then we'll move down to the abdominal region. So your abdomen is the squishy part of your body underneath your rib cage because there's no bones there. That's why it's squishy. And it's highlighted by the umbilical region, which is where your belly button is, and it's where your umbilical cord used to attach. And then we'll move on to the pelvic region. So that's your pelvis, where your big bony pelvis is located. And then below the pelvic region, or within the pelvic region, is the inguinal region, which is the groin, and then the pubic or genital area, which is where genitalia is located. Then we'll move to the other side of our list here. The upper limb, you have the acromial region, that's your shoulder. The deltoid region is where the deltoid muscle is located at the top of your arm or just below the point of your shoulder. And then moving down, you have the brachial region, so that's your arm. The antecubital region is the inside of your elbow. The antebrachial region is your forearm. And then the carpal region is your wrist. And then your entire hand is referred to as the manus region. And then your fingers individually are digits, or the digital region. Your fingers are also called phalanges, in case you want to bust out a fun vocabulary word this week. And then we'll move to the lower limb. The coxal region is your hip, so that's lateral to the sides of your body. The femoral region is your thigh. The patellar region is where your patella is, so that's your kneecap. And then the crural region refers to your leg. The fibular region refers to where your fibula is located, so that's one of the bones in your lower leg. And then the pedal region is your foot. And the tarsals are your ankles. And on your feet, you also have digits, and those are your toes. Next, we'll move on to the posterior landmarks of your body. The backside of your body is also known as dorsal, or it can be referred to as backside, but posterior and dorsal are by far the most common and anatomical terms that we use. So some of the terms are going to be the same. Some of them are specific to the backside of the body. So on the upper limb, the acromial region, because it's lateral and it's on your shoulder, is still going to be called the acromial region. Your brachial region is still brachial. But the back of your elbow has a different name. So that's the olecranal region. The antebrachial region has the same name. So again, it's still your forearm. Your hand is still the manus region, and your fingers are still digital. It's just the posterior side. And then when we move down to your legs, the femoral region has not changed, but the back of your knee is not the same as the front. The back is called the popliteal region. And then your calf, where the big muscly part of your calf is called the sural region. The fibular region is still the fibular region because it's kind of lateral. It's not on the front or the back. And then on your foot, your whole foot is still called the pedal region because that's what the name of your foot region is. But on the bottom of your foot, the heel is the calcaneal region because you have a bone there called the calcaneus. And then the bottom of your foot is called the plantar region. So then we'll move to our other side of the diagram here. Your head is still cephalic, but the back of your head is called the occipital region. And there's a bone there called the occipital bone, so they're named for each other. Your neck is still the cervical region. But then on your back, you have some other regions that are different than the front. The scapular region is where your scapula is. That's that wing-shaped bone that you have on your back. The vertebral region is where your spinal column or your vertebral column goes. The lumbar region is your low back. And then the sacral region is where the sacrum is. That's another bone that makes up part of your pelvis. And then the gluteal region is where your gluteal muscles are. There's 3 different muscles that make up the gluteus group. So there's gluteus minimus, medius, and gluteus maximus. And that's kind of the major regions on the backside. So sometime this week, you are going to be labeling a diagram that you make for yourself. You can label a stuffed animal, you can label one of your pets, you can label yourself, but you're going to label 30 of these 45 or so regions just so you can review. And then we'll take a quiz probably on it sometime.